Okay, guys, no making fun of my temperature sensor that's jammed in the giant plug hole. I looked through my junk pile. I couldn't find one really big old Ford style plug. I'm sure I have one somewhere. But this is good enough. I put enough tape around it to seal. We don't have any leakage on the bench, so we're good to go. So what you're seeing is my very first just cut some valve seats. The valves that I had in stock is 1.625 Chevy length. Probably one that used to be run on my AFR 190s on the old black truck. It's so old that it has a back cut on it. I know, it's terrible. I didn't know any better when I was a kid. Yeah, it kind of kills me. But they cleaned up pretty nice. They're not a bad looking valve. The intake is a textured 1.85 Ford valve that I got for the GT40Ps I was going to build for my wife when we were engaged. That's what we're going to be using for testing. It does have a back cut on it. It's fine for now. And, that texture does kind of help on doing our fuel. As you can see, all I did was cut the seats. Are they the exact size I need? No, they're a hair small. In fact, I would personally not use a 1.625 exhaust, and I would shrink that down a little bit and use a bigger intake valve. But this is what the customer specified, and you got to do what the customer wants. So we're going to make the best of what we got. As far as our liquid, considering it's all rough and jagged, it just has a valve seat on it. And you can see I went around the inside edge with a burr just to take the razor sharp edge off from the 60. Now, the original valve job on these is specified at 30 degree on the intake. Now, as far as I'm concerned, 30 degree on an intake that's going to be spinning at 8,000 RPM is going to have trouble sealing. It's going to want to bounce. So the customer agreed to 45s on both for durability, and that's what we're going to wind up using. But the upper and lower cuts I can change any way I want. For this, just to get a baseline, you can see, same thing on the exhaust. I just took the burr and just knocked down that really, really sharp edge. And we put it on the bench to see what it looked like. And then we took our intake and carburetor, completely stock, and bolted it on this to see what we get. Now, somebody in the comments of the last video on these gave us what that manifold flows. Now, he didn't specify whether those reported numbers or not, but they were like 250, almost even across all 8 runners, which is fantastic. Usually dual planes are all over the place. I'm not doubting his numbers, but I have a feeling those, he said he was able to port that intake up to 300 plus CFM, which I always like that design, so it really doesn't surprise me. But when we go do and hit the intake, it's going to be involved because of the short runner, long runner thing. In any case, if he's right and it flows 250 right now, we get a good idea what's going on here. So let's take a quick look at this. Okay, typical Ford fashion. It goes straight down the port and whacks into the center of the cylinder wall. Let's see if we can get a little bit better light in there. Okay, that looks like it's lit a little bit better. It wants to focus on the outside instead of the inside. Sorry, guys. Doing what I can. All right, you can see a touch of blue all the way on the far right there. Not terrible. You can see the blue on the back of the bowl shaped around the guide. Overall, not bad. It could be worse. We can see we got a little bit of blue right on the chamber. Oh, and before you start screaming about this changing our airflow, let me tell you a little something about small block Fords that have, the plug is in a hole. An extended tip plug that comes out is worth a few horsepower. Guy on Speed Talk says he gets about 7 extra horsepower out of a 289 doing that. That was Engine Master's 289. He did very well with it. Okay. Looks pretty darn good to me. Now, does that textured intake valve help? It does help a little bit. It definitely does. I believe I have some 1.85s in that pack that haven't been touched, so we could try that with the different ones. Okay, 1.85 is not the size valve this is going to be finalized with. It's a 1.875. I do not have those valves. So I got to use what I got. I guess I could take an old 194 and machine it down, but I'm going to hold off on that right now. I can probably do quite a bit of testing with this and be pretty accurate. All right, how did we do? Well, let's take a look at our 300 number, 186.5. Not terrible. How does it top out? It tops out about as good as a good ported E7 will go that far. I think the best I did with an E7 was like 230 with a stock valve. That's a huge amount of work. This is, a heavy-duty casting with a valve job on it and nothing else. Do I think this will pick up to 250, 260? Yeah, I think we should be able to get there with this casting. It should not be a problem. The big question is, how much air do we need on a 289 that's going to spin to 8,000? And does it help to have extra airflow over what you need? This is a little out of my wheelhouse because usually I'm dealing with stuff that's not so cubic inch limited. So I need some input on this, guys. There are some guys that have been porting on this original GT40 stuff for 50 years. Same guy that gave us the numbers for that intake manifold. He seems like he's done quite a bit of this, so he'll be a huge help. Take a look at our swirl. Pretty much dead. And right in the area where it's going to run, it's around 1,700. Just about perfect. Does that mean it's going to stay that way after we do all of our work? Probably not. Besides, we still got to take a look at what the swirl does after we put the intake on. And every runner will be a little bit different on that, so it's going to be kind of hit or miss. All right, that huge exhaust port with a huge valve. Not great. Okay? It's got some noise. It doesn't flow fantastic, even at higher lifts. 140. Not great. E7 flows like 113 stock. So it's not huge. I mean, I got E7 ports to go 180 CFM. So I have no doubt I can get this around 200. And what is it with a 178 pipe? 178 just barely covers that exhaust. We get 156.1. Not great. So we need an extra 50 CFM out of that. Should be able to do that. Okay, what did we look like with the Shelby intake and carb? Well, obviously, we're going to lose a little bit, right? Sometimes we get a gain in the real low ones, but not this time. Took quite a hit, quite a hit, quite a hit. Even on our best, let's say 220. Wow. Now, what we could do is we could take 176.2 and we could put it through our Wallace calculator with 289 board 30 over, so it's a 292. And see what it says. I'll do that while you guys are on pause. Okay, you guys should be able to read that. 176.2 is 362 horsepower between 4790 and 6,290. I believe these engines were right around 360 horsepower. You guys will know better than me, the guys that'll research this. Now, on that calculator, that was 28 inches, 292, Typical racing engine. Number of cylinders, 8. And that's what you come up with. Okay, well, we need quite a bit more than that, so we got our work cut out ahead of us, but we're good at that. Okay, pinch is big, so we're slow. 253, 250, 226. Interesting, right? Most of the air wants to go on the center of the cylinder side because that showed us, that was right on the side where the liquid goes, right? Center of the cylinder. We know Ford likes that side anyway. And besides, that side's actually unshrouded, right? We can use that to our advantage. And take a look at our short side. Now, considering it doesn't have the world's best valve job, nothing special, it's got all that junk in the port, that is the best short side I've ever seen from side-to-side measurements, completely stock. So they definitely did some homework there. We're going to try to keep that as even as we can during this whole development. Now take a look at our exhaust. What did I say? I said it was too tall. It's dead all along the bottom. That just proves my point. How are we side to side? Not bad. Not terrible. Right, the top of the port's fine. Bottom of the port, it's going to be hard to get that air around the turn. I'm going to see what I can do, see if we can improve that a little bit, make it a little more efficient. Because at 140, ain't cutting it. Even though we still have some numbers in the 300s. It should be better than that by a lot. All right, guys. Almost 12 minutes fiddling around with a head and an intake and a carb. But we got our baseline numbers down. And it's on up from there. So I even took Monday off just so I can hit these guys hard. And have a good weekend, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.